I go out to eat a lot, and I'm sharing my favorite meals and restaurants of 2025. For those of you new here, I'm Alex, and I eat too much. I've gone by Alex Eats Too Much on the internet for the last 8 years, mostly on Instagram, but now I'm trying to do a lot more type of stuff to talk to you about everything that I've been doing over the years. So I'm going to start this off right away by jumping into some of the honorable mentions for what were my favorites for 2025. So my first honorable mention would be my best happy hour bites. And I discovered this year that Soba in Pittsburgh Shadyside has a happy hour. And this is a really great deal. They have some select cocktails and select appetizers that you can get during this time. The favorite things that I've gotten during that time were specifically they have these ahi tuna nachos that are really, really good. I would highly recommend checking that out. Soba is actually one of my favorite restaurants in the city, regardless. So anytime I get to go there is always a great meal. Uh, the next one that I would like to talk about was my best food truck bite of 2025. I just got to discover this food truck this year, which is Cold Friends Kitchen. They're typically parked out in front of Vellum Brewing in Pittsburgh South Side. And the bite that I've discovered that I love is their pork belly bites. And these are barely bites if you think about it. They're actually these giant squares of pork belly covered in glaze and sauce. Absolutely delicious. Crispy on the outside, super tender on the inside. Anytime I go there, it's one of the things I must order. Uh, definitely worth checking them out. And if you check them out on Google, their reviews also 5 stars. All those reviews are 100% accurate. They are one of the best that I've discovered in the city. I know they have a lot of plans coming ahead for 2026. Can't wait to do more stuff with them and try more of their food. So the next thing I would like to do as a last honorable mention are the best desserts that I've had in 2025. And my best desserts, hands down, are 11. They're located right outside downtown in Pittsburgh. Uh, beautiful pastries and desserts, but also they're delicious. Their pastry chef Selena does a great job with all these things, designing these beautiful plates. Anytime I go to 11, I don't get dessert very often, but 11 is one of the places I decide I have to get a dessert all the time. 11 in general is also a great meal. Maybe this year they weren't my top meals, but their desserts were amazing. So now I'm going to just jump right into the best meals that I had in 2025. Not all these meals were actually in Pittsburgh, and not all these meals I actually even got to post to my Instagram or my other channels. Some of them I fell behind, and because, especially if they weren't in Pittsburgh, I may not have prioritized them over some of my other meals that I had that were in Pittsburgh. They're definitely worth posting still, and I will eventually because, I mean, they were great meals. But getting right into it. All right, now on to my favorites of 2025. And just a couple of reminders. First, I put these in alphabetical order, so that way they're not actually ranked as favorites, they're just my favorites of this past year. The other thing is, not all of these are actually going to be in Pittsburgh. So if you are listening just for Pittsburgh, you may want to just bear it with me when I talk about those ones that are not actually in Pittsburgh. Now, my first one of 2025 was Alla Famiglia. Now, this Italian restaurant that is located in Pittsburgh's Allentown neighborhood is definitely one of my favorites overall, and not just of 2025. Every time I go there, we're greeted with such a great meal. And one of the things to realize about going to eat at Alla Famiglia is it's an experience. This isn't just a go in, order your entree, and get out. This is a full 4-course type of eating experience. Appetizers, a pasta course, a salad course, your main course, dessert if you want to do that. Every time, it's always something that's kind of special, even though it doesn't really have to be a special occasion type of meal. That being said, we went for my dad's birthday, which he really likes this meal for his type of birthday. For me, I love going there because the pasta course is always a show, because if you do the cascio e pepe, they bring out the cheese wheel and they toss everything there for you. Also, one of my favorite things to get there is their veal chop. Not many places in Pittsburgh has a veal chop on their menu, but when you order it at Alla Famiglia, it's a big veal chop, and they do different types of preparations. So it's always such a great meal. The other thing about Alla Famiglia is it's one of the few places that I actually end up bringing home leftovers. They feed you so much food that in the end, what ends up happening is by the time I get to the entree, I eat about half of my entree and then decide I need to actually leave room, which is rare for somebody like me who eats too much. so that way I can then go and eat some dessert. So my next favorite of 2025, which is my first one that was not in Pittsburgh, was Amaya Modern Mexican in Las Vegas. So I was in Las Vegas earlier this year for the International Pizza Expo. And during this time, I did have a lot of free time in the evenings, especially after I finally was hungry again after eating pizza and other snacks that you may find at pizza places all day long after walking around the expo. One of the days I decided to go for a nicer meal was at Amaya, which is at the Cosmopolitan Hotel. I took a total chance on this one. I had never heard of it before, but I assumed because it would be at the Cosmopolitan, it'd be one of the better meals that I could have. They were super busy when I arrived. I was able to sneak up and get the last bar seat literally on the end of the bar, and it was totally worth it. I thought I was going to order a lot of food, and in the end, I ended up actually having to push through just the two things that I ate because they were such big portions. I started with the charred octopus appetizer, which I was blown away by this. It was delicious, but also it was like 7 giant octopus tentacles there. At least I think it was 7. It may have been 8. It may have been a full octopus. I don't remember. But it was still charred to perfection. The sauce was delicious with this thing. Definitely still need to make a video about this meal because it was one of my best meals. But because I got so busy with other things, I left some of my travel meals off to the side and didn't get to actually showcase this one on my Instagram. Definitely want to return back there and try it again at some point and really do much more than just the appetizer and some tacos. All right, on to my third favorite of 2025, and it's actually my second one that's not in Pittsburgh. This favorite was the Anchorage, which was in Greenville, South Carolina. I did a weekend trip to Greenville back in May, and I was blown away by that city. It's a beautiful small city, and one of the funny things about going there was all the time, anytime I met somebody, they asked, so when was I going to move to Greenville? And I could totally see that as a place I would move to if I decided to move south. However, this meal at the Anchorage, this was an unbelievable meal. The Anchorage focuses very heavily on working with local farms, local providers to try to bring in all their food, and then they create meals around those ingredients. They're a James Beard finalist from back in 2017, and when I went there, I decided to go all out, and I just did their prefixed menu. They did 8 small plates, also a bread course and a dessert course. Seriously, one of the best meals I had. I mean, some of the things that I really want to call out that I had that were amazing were the beet-cured salmon gravlax. This was not something I typically would have gotten because, or I should say, not something I would have expected. I've gotten gravlax a lot of other places, but the beet cure just added that extra flavor to it that made, which was very interesting. Then the braised lamb cappioletti was also a beautiful dish, awesome pasta dish. But my favorite of the night was actually, they had this, I don't even know how to best describe it, but it was like a duck confit that they cooked and then they pressed it into a cube and then recooked it again on the griddle. Unbelievable. So it was full of flavor, crispy on the outside, really soft on the inside because of the double cook there. I would love to go back to this restaurant. If I make my way back to Greenville, I'm definitely going to be eating there again. So my fourth on the list is coming back to Pittsburgh, Casbah in Shadyside. This has always been one of my favorite restaurants also. I eat here at least once or twice a year. This year, I actually decided in January this was going to be my birthday dinner. So for people that don't know, and I've done a video on this before, Casbah's parent company, Big Burrito, they do, if you sign up for their rewards, you get a birthday entree or at least money towards a birthday entree, depending on how expensive it is. They also throw you a lot of other discounts and things during the holiday season. Definitely worth signing up for their mailing list. However, so this time at Casbah, I typically would go for their double cut pork chop. It's one of my favorite things that they have on the menu. However, this time I decided to go for, they had an Elysian Field Farms lamb shank on their menu. I don't think it's normally on the menu, but this was unbelievable. It was a braised lamb shank, fell off the bone tender, absolutely delicious. Would get that again if it's on the menu. However, I will always go back to like the double cut pork chop or something like that anytime I go there. The next item on my list was Chengdu Gourmet 2. Uh, I'd eaten at the original Chengdu Gourmet in Squirrel Hill many times. However, this was my first time going to the Chengdu Gourmet 2 in the North Hills. Went with a group. We ordered a whole bunch of traditional, authentic dishes. However, the thing that really blew me away was we ordered the green peppercorn whole fish. And they brought out this beautifully plated whole fish that we had to cut apart. The green peppercorn sauce that they have with it was just a not traditional flavor for me. Not something I would normally get, but this just absolutely was amazing. Definitely need to go back and try some more things on the menu. We also got the Chongqing, Chongqing chicken, which was delicious, and many other items. Definitely, definitely, definitely worth going there and eating there over and over again. Next thing, leaving Pittsburgh again. I never got to post this one either, but I was in New Orleans quickly for a conference back in April, and I got the opportunity the one night to eat at Cochon, which is one of the more well-known restaurants in New Orleans. They have two different sides. They have their more fine dining type of place, and then they have their butcher shop next door. I've eaten at the butcher shop also and gotten their mortadella sandwich, which was unbelievable. Massive sandwich, really, really great, neat. But this time I ate at the main restaurant, and they focus on more of a Cajun and Southern cuisines, so I leaned heavily into that. I started with the appetizer of the fried alligator. Absolutely delicious. But the thing that really blew me away was for my main course, I got the rabbit and dumplings. Tender rabbit, dumplings. Would highly recommend going there. I would love to get that meal again at some point. We'll see if that ever happens. Okay, up next, coming back to Pittsburgh, is Community Kitchen. Now, Community Kitchen is a place that I have done a lot of work with over the last couple of years. They're not necessarily just a restaurant, but they're also a training facility and a nonprofit where they teach people that may be looking for second chances or may just need additional assistance in the culinary arts. I actually had two really great meals with Community Kitchen this year. The first of being their now famous fish fry. They've always had a really great fish fry during the Lenten season, but this year it somehow just bumped it up a notch. They do these massive fish sandwiches, and they got showcased a lot of times this past year, which really, really helped them out. And I will say it is one of the better fish fry sandwiches that I've had. The other really great meal that I had there was they do monthly guest chef dinners. And the one that I got to attend this year that was really, really great was they brought in Chef Simon from Soju, and he put together this fantastic Korean barbecue dinner. We have multiple courses of different types of appetizers and then also all these great grilled meats. So I would highly recommend checking out Community Kitchen for the different things that they do within Pittsburgh, and specifically for their fish fry and the different chef dinners that they do throughout the year. So next up would be leaving Pittsburgh again. I had this fantastic dinner in Gettysburg at the Dobbin House. Now, the Dobbin House is a former residence that was built actually in 1776 that has since been renovated into a fine dining restaurant and then also a tavern in their basement. What was really cool about this is in the fine dining restaurant, they have themed the different rooms based on what it would be like to live in that house. We were lucky enough, we got to eat in the bedroom part of the restaurant, and we were literally eating in what was a converted bed into a table with the bed canopy over it. Really, really cool experience to eat there. What was really, really awesome about this meal, though, was just the flavors of everything, getting to see the things that they were known for, and my meal blew me away. I got their French onion soup, which is actually called the Baked King's Soup, which is that they theme everything in the restaurant to be more American Revolution type of theming. And it was by far one of the best French onion soups I've ever had. And then I also decided to get the prime rib for dinner, and the prime rib was massive. It was delicious, came with a great au jus. I definitely would love to go back there. They're also known for things like their crab cakes and some of the desserts, stuff that I didn't really get to try this time around, and I definitely want to try them again. I hope to get back to Gettysburg at some point since my trip was only 24 hours in Gettysburg. And I do have a video out there right now on my YouTube about that trip that you can see everything I did in that quick 24 hours. Going on to that, coming back to Pittsburgh, one of the first meals I had actually in 2025 was at Duo's Taqueria. What's crazy about Duo's Taqueria is it's actually owned by Duolingo, the language learning app that you can download and learn how to speak another language. But they brought in this really, really great, authentic Mexican restaurant right there in Pittsburgh's East Liberty neighborhood. I ended up eating so much different food at this meal. From queso, guac, different tacos, tamales. We even got a roast chicken. The whole meal was absolutely amazing. And I do feel like I need to go back there and try a lot of other stuff again. And it's almost coming up on a year since I've been there. So I'm probably due for another time eating at Duo's Taqueria. Moving on, one of my favorites that I returned to, which I actually hadn't eaten there in a long, long time, was Gi-Jin. Gi-Jin is a sushi restaurant in downtown Pittsburgh by the Richard Deschamps Group. I've raved about this restaurant over the years, and it's probably one of the restaurants I've attended the most since they opened in 2021. I don't know why it took me so long to go back between visits, but when I went back, they definitely changed some things on the menu that I was not expecting, but they turned out to be amazing. One of which was the tuna pizza, which was one of the things that they were known for, was replaced by tuna toast, where they now did the tuna on pieces of toasted milk bread instead of the scallion pancake. So good, maybe even better when it was originally there. The other things that I love is this time around I got the machi crudo, which they always change that up seasonally as well. This time it was with a beet sauce and beets. Absolutely delicious. Some of my other favorites, I skipped this time, like the beef tataki. Typically love that one as well, and I usually get it. Just wasn't on my mind this time around. Also, I always get a bunch of nigiri, especially the toro, the fatty tuna belly, and then some of the hand rolls. Always a great meal. Always love going back there. It does get a little pricey, but it's always worth it. It's always so delicious. Okay, another not in Pittsburgh meal that absolutely surprised me was I went to Gus's Sip Dip when I was in Chicago in August. This was a totally impromptu choice for dinner. It was something that I saw on a list of best cocktail bars in the United States and said, I need to try this out. Originally, I had planned on going after dinner, and when I saw they did have sandwiches on the menu, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this a try. I am so glad I did. First, just walking in this place, it's styled kind of like a 1950s, 1960s bar. They have everybody dressed up in the type of uniforms you would have seen at a hotel restaurant during that time. They had memorabilia on the walls of different cue cards from Second City and also Saturday Night Live, photos of different celebrities. Who knows if any of them have actually eaten there, but it was just a really cool vibe when I got in there. The meal, though, that's what got me. I got a Wagyu beef dip sandwich, which is what they are known for, and it was unreal. The sandwich was literally just bread, meat, horseradish, and au jus. 100% would go back there just for this sandwich. However, the cocktails were great too. So I mean, overall, it's totally worth visiting this place. Next time I end up in Chicago, I'm probably going to add this to my list as a place I need to return to just because it was that good. Coming back to Pittsburgh, another one of my favorites, not just in 2025, but overall ever, is Meat and Potatoes. Another Richard Deschamps Group restaurant in downtown Pittsburgh. I've been there a few times this year, but specifically the meal that I'm calling out is I was there in June with some friends that came to town, and they wanted to do the 50-ounce tomahawk ribeye that they have on the menu all the time there. This I've had at times where it's been hit or miss. However, this time was absolutely amazing. It was cooked perfectly to a nice medium rare, and it's also swimming in the melted bone marrow that it gets served with. It comes with French fries, and we ordered a bunch of other sides too. Absolutely great meal. Whether you order it for your table and you share it with a bunch of people as essentially an add-on to your meal, or you just share it with people as your meal. Totally, totally worth it. One of the things that I always recommend to people, especially if they're looking for more of an experience type of dinner. All right, next up was Morcia. This is a restaurant in Pittsburgh's Lawrenceville. Somehow I had never eaten at Morcia before. I'm glad I finally went though. Absolutely another amazing, amazing meal. Morcia specializes in Spanish tapas, so small plates. We ordered probably half the menu that night, but my favorites were definitely the oxtail toast, the octopus, and the baby back ribs. The oxtail was so savory, so tender, and it really contrasts on that piece of toast. The other part that I really, really loved were those ribs. The ribs had a harissa and a za'atar on them. Really, really good. I probably should go back to Morcia more now knowing just how good it is, but I'm really disappointed in myself for taking this long considering that I've lived in Pittsburgh for years and have been talking about Pittsburgh food for years, and yet this was my first time there. The next one was something that is not only recently opened, but also is actually a pop-up in Pittsburgh. So I'm gonna have to go back there a few more times before they go away, was Mortadella at Preamp Coffee Studio. So Preamp Coffee Studio just opened up back in November. They are another Richard DeChance group restaurant, which is kind of funny, but this is their first time really dipping their toes into a full coffee space. One of the things that they're doing really cool beyond really, really nice coffee is they're going to have a different kitchen pop-up in there every 3 months, and they started with Mortadella. Mortadella is focusing on Florentine style sandwiches. So those are the sandwiches that have the big pieces of focaccia. I knew right away I was going to love this sandwich, and I was 100% correct about it. I ended up going with, instead of a mortadella sandwich, I went with a spicy chicken parm sandwich that was absolutely delicious. Big, big sandwich, nice piece of chicken on it. The spicy sauce, the Calabrian chili in the sauce made it a really great sandwich. I definitely need to go back though and try some of the other ones, including the signature mortadella sandwich that they have available. I believe this pop-up is available until sometime in February, so I'm only going to have a few chances to really get back there and try it again. Okay, next up is another newcomer to Pittsburgh. It's Nanjing Xiaolong Bao. They opened up in February in Pittsburgh South Side. They are a dim sum restaurant that was originally out of New York City, and they decided to open up one of their first non-New York City locations in Pittsburgh. This was super exciting to me. I love dim sum, so really couldn't wait to check them out. They're known for their soup dumplings. We ordered an assortment of the soup dumplings. You can either get a combo platter that shows all the different soup dumplings they have, or you can get just steamer trays of the different ones that they have. My favorites were the classic pork filled, and they also had a truffle and pork ones that were really, really good. We also ordered a bunch of other things, noodle dishes. Can't wait to go back. I know I'm going back sometime right after the new year to do a whole other dim sum feast. Now, next one, slightly outside of Pittsburgh. I've spent a lot of time in the Laurel Highlands this year, and one of the places I finally got to check out was Out of the Fire Cafe. I was there back in January. They're right off the turnpike in Donegal. They're known specifically for their smoked salmon dishes, also their mushroom soup. I really enjoyed the mushroom salmon, sorry, not the mushroom salmon. They don't have mushroom salmon. I really enjoyed their smoked salmon. We did a nice platter that comes with a bunch of different things that you can pair the salmon with. Definitely would go back there for that specifically. They also have a lot of other great meals that are available there to try. It's kind of a not so hidden gem right there in the Laurel Highlands. Getting close to my final meal favorites of 2025, next up is Pom Pom. This is another new restaurant that opened up in Pittsburgh, this time in East Liberty. They were going for East Coast vibes, Palm Spring vibes, focusing on small plates. When I went the opening week. We ended up having something like half the menu throughout this experience. Tried all sorts of different stuff. Chef sent out some different things. Spent a lot of time talking to the staff, the owner. Such a great experience overall. Everything was delicious, but I definitely had some favorites. The seafood skewers were unbelievable. The mini lobster rolls were unbelievable. They have truffle spaghettios, which was really cool. So I was trying to give you more of this like uh, nostalgia type of vibe to eating spaghettios, but also an elevated, rich flavor. But my favorite dish of the night was definitely the bone marrow tartare. Uh, that was so, so good. Would go back and definitely just eat that specifically. Um, Still need to go back there. I really want to try brunch as well. Uh, there was so many different things. Really couldn't get all of it in one meal. Next up, another one of my favorites, and I've been eating here since before it was even a restaurant, but when it was just pop-up meals that were done occasionally, is the Parlor Dim Sum in Pittsburgh's Lawrenceville. I ate here several times throughout the year, but the meal I want to call out specifically was their Lunar New Year celebration that they do every year in January and February. They bring out a bunch of special dishes. So this is a dim sum restaurant that focuses on elevated Cantonese dim sum. Yeah, and I have always gone there for the shumai, the char siu pork, but they always add in all these additional things. This year I think there was a short rib noodle dish that I got this time that was really, really great. Always love going there throughout the year. Always end up going back because every time I eat there, it's a delicious meal. So of course, immediately after I finish filming this video of my favorite meals of 2025, I go and have another great meal. I found myself at Pocha Korean by Kiwon out in Saxonburg over the weekend. I learned about this place from my friends at Discover the Berg. We ended up going back there with them. Amazing meal, amazing Korean comfort food meal. What we ended up ordering, we got almost a good portion of the menu. Amazing dumplings, amazing japchae that we got. We also did kind of a modified version of the Korean barbecue because it was too cold to do it outside. Fantastic meal. Definitely want to go back there at some point and do it with the actual Korean barbecue when we can actually go outside and do it. The other really cool thing about them is they are also a Grist House tap room. And if you know, I have a love for Grist House beers, so it was really great to be able to have this nice Korean meal with also the Grist House beers that I love. The last meal that I want to focus on that was outside of Pittsburgh was Refarm Cafe at Windswept Farm. This is in State College. So as you may have seen if you've been following me for a while, is I end up out in State College doing different things with Happy Valley Adventure Bureau multiple times throughout the year. I'm also a Penn State grad, so I love going back there all the time. So one of the really great things I got to do was go to this restaurant that does farm to table. And what was really cool about it is they do a prefixed 4-course meal. You have a couple of different options as part of the prefix, which is nice. I got to pick out all these different things that I thought were going to be really perfect for me. What's really cool also is that everything is either grown on the farm or they source everything locally from farmers. So anytime that something is on the menu, you know it's something that's seasonal, something that is from the region. I keep saying one of the cool things, but I mean, what's also really cool is they don't consider their chefs just chefs. They're composers. They're coming up with something that is different, something that is original every time. And they work with local people again and local teams that are trying to get into the culinary arts. So this was just an overall amazing experience. We got to walk around the farm, learn about the different things that they're doing on the farm, trying to promote the sustainability, especially in the State College region, and then getting into the dinner. Some really delicious cocktails featuring some of the local distilleries. And then my main course was their lamb chops. Absolutely amazing. Would 100% go back for that. Some other people got the trout that day. They had an asparagus risotto that was really cool. Definitely worth the meal. They require reservations there also because they only make enough food to feed whoever is going to be there that night. This is another way they cut down on waste and keep everything sustainable. Definitely worth checking it out if you're out in the Happy Valley State College area. Now, finally, on to my last favorite meal of 2025. Hard to believe that I'm on to the last one. I mean, this was like 20 meals that I went through. This is also one I'm glad to have been able to get to experience because the restaurant is currently temporarily closed. And that is Umi Japanese Cuisine. They are part of Pittsburgh's Shady Side neighborhood. They're above Soba, which I mentioned earlier as part of the Big Burrito group. They do Soba downstairs does more traditional Japanese cuisine. Umi upstairs does specifically sushi and fine dining. I got to go there for their 18-course omakase, which was this beautiful, beautiful parade, essentially, of different cuts of fish, seared raw, some pieces of seared wagyu, all sorts of stuff. Unbelievable. Ate so much. But as I mentioned, Umi is temporarily closed at the moment because their sushi chef, Mr. Shu, decided after a very, very long career, it was time for his retirement. I'm very happy for him in his time of retirement, and I can't wait to see what Umi does when they reopen. But for now, this was a great experience that I got to get to before they had to, unfortunately, temporarily close for the time being. So that's it. That's my favorite meals of 2025. As mentioned, most of these were in Pittsburgh. Some of them were as part of my travels throughout the United States this year. Can't wait to see what 2026 brings to me. I already have some travels planned for outside of Pittsburgh and can't wait to see what I eat there. Excited for, I've already got some things listed for 2026 in Pittsburgh that I'm going to be doing. So I can't wait to bring that all to everybody. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this. Comment what was your favorite meal of 2025 or somewhere that you may want to try in 2025 or 2026 that you saw through my video. And please, if you want to see more of this, subscribe to my channel. Thank you.